Hi everyone, welcome to the third lesson for topic 4.1 time series analysis. So for this lesson is going to be a shorter one because you still have the other video about exams briefing that you need to go through. Other than that, I also wish that you have more time to spend and also to think about the exercise question that we have for this lesson. Alright, so as you can see for the learning outcome for this lesson is exactly the same like the previous lesson, which we talk about how to smooth the time series data by using simple moving average. But for today's lesson, we are going to focus on the part where how can we use spreadsheet, which means how can we use TI Inspire to help us to implement the whole process of moving average. Other than that, we are also looking at how to build or how to create another shortcut formula for standard moving average so that we can try to shorten the process that we need to carry out if we are doing even point moving average. Alright, so let's do a quick recap before we move on to the content. Alright, in Tuesday lesson, we talk about that a simple moving average is a method that we use in time series so that we can smooth the time series data. So the other techniques that we need to learn under this topic, it will be deseasonalization. We'll be looking at it in the next week. Alright, so what are we going to do with this method is that we try to replace the observation by using a simple average that we try to find out from the observation and also from the neighbors. So how many points that you are going to use in your moving average is going to be depending on how many seasons you have in one cycle. So all the data that we are dealing with are basically seasonal data. So when we try to carry out this process, it helps us to reduce the seasonal effect. So that's why after the effect is removed, then we are able to see the trend in a much more clearer way. Okay, so there are two types of moving average that we learned in a previous lesson. So the first one is odd point moving average. So which means that you have odd number of season in your cycle. For example, we talk about 3 point moving average, then 5 point moving average, or like 7 point, 9 points, and so on. Okay, then the second one is we have on the other hand, which is even point. Okay, so for even point moving average, it also called as centered moving average. So basically, why are we having this centered moving average? That when we have a even point, even data points, right, then when we try to find out the center of the data point, then it will actually lies between a time period. So that's why we do not have it will be like kind of misalignment of your data and also of the measurement of time. So this is why we need to proceed. We need to carry out another step for moving average if let's say we are dealing with even number of data. Alright, so that's basically what we have go through. I hope that you already get the idea that you are able to create the time series plot in your calculator and also compare the one that before you smooth the data and after you smooth the data. Let's start the lesson here by looking at how can we use our calculator to help us to carry out the odd point moving average. Alright, so make sure that you have your calculator with you and also for Tuesday handout. Alright, so we are going to carry out the whole thing again by using our calculator here. Alright, so this is the question that we go through manually last time. So remember your previous handout, the one that we talk about the number of visitor. Okay, so example 1 in handout 2. Alright, so now let's try to look at this data, then we try to carry out the whole process by using our calculator. So same thing, if you were to key in the data in the spreadsheet, that which means that you need to add list and spreadsheet. So same thing, calculator doesn't recognize the months, the period of the time. So that's why we are using like data point 1, data point 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on to represent each of your period. So you can see that there's like 3, 6, 9, 10. So that's why we have 10 data here. Then we are just going to key in that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Alright, so we can try to key in this maybe as T or you want to put it as time also can. Alright, then the other one will be our visitor. Alright, so what do we need to do here is to key in all the value. So we have 45 for the first one. Okay, 26. All right, and I move on. We have 34, 52, 37, and then the next one is 42, 64, 41, 50, 59. All right, sorry, the last one is 69. Alright, so after you have keyed in all the values, so now we need to see how to give the command to the calculator so the calculator can work for us. Okay, so let's try to look at our table here first. So you see we are doing a 3-point moving average, right? Then how do you get all this value exactly? So it's actually by finding what is the sum of these three numbers and then you divide by 3. Then you continue the same process again, finding out the sum for these three value, then you divide by 3. So now we need to key in the formula in our calculator. Okay, so we know that this is the first position that we need to key in our data, right? Because you are getting the sum and the center is here. So we just put equal to. So you should remember how do you identify or how can you assign one cell in your calculator by using the row and the column. So the row here is, sorry, the column here is B and then the row here is 1. So that's why 45 is known as B1. Okay, then for 26 is going to be column B and then row 2. So plus B2 and then plus B3. So make sure that you put an equal sign here. So equal sign, then we use a bracket because you're going to plus them all together first before you divide by 3. So B1 plus B2 plus B3, then close your bracket. Then after that, divide by 3. Okay, then after that you press enter, then you'll be able to get the number. Then you can see 35 is correct. Okay, so now you'll be wondering if let's say I need to key in every time, then isn't it's going to be time consuming as well. So if you can recall from growth and decay, then you know that there's a function of fill in your calculator. So make sure that your cell here is at 35. Okay, so the highlighted cell is at 35. So now we are going to copy this formula for the rest of the column here. So what do we need to do? Go to menu, data, and then fill. Is it okay? Menu, data, fill. So after you press enter, then you will see that as you go down, sorry, if this happened, then you just go back lah. Okay, then when you go down, you can see this dotted line. So make sure that you just pull the dotted line until the end of your data here. So you doesn't really need to think about what is your last position of your data. Your calculator will help you to do that. So you just pull them until the end of your data, then you just press OK. Okay, so you'll be able to get this, then you can see that there's like an empty last row here. Then you can see that because this is this number plus this number and this number, because of there's no number here, so that's why the calculator cannot implement the formula here. So that's why you have like an empty cell here. So this is correct because you are having an empty row in your original data as well. So when you try to compare, then you'll be able to see that all this value is actually correct according to our table here. Okay, so I guess it's quite straightforward for odd point moving average. So that's the idea. So same thing when you're having this, then you can just try to put in. So this is moving average. So if let's say after you assign the variable, right, then you can see that there's a dash here and there's a dash here. So a calculator will straight away read it for you. So if let's say you want to draw a scatter plot, then then you will need to add in another new page, right? Then after that, add data and statistic. Then you'll be able to look at time versus visitor. Okay, so we can add in another line as well. All right, so this is your original time series. Then after that, if let's say we want to add in, so this is the thing that we learned in the last lesson as well. So if you want to add in anything, then you just go to plot properties. Then after that, add y variable. Okay, so here then this is the moving average. Then you'll be looking at this is the data that you have after you carry out moving average. Then definitely is going to be much more flatter compared to the previous one because seasonal effect is removed. Okay, so that's the part for odd point moving average. For even point moving average, then you can, imagine that how difficult it is because we need to leave the cell empty. So that will be not so practical. So that's why for even point moving average, we'll talk about the shortcut formula first before we move on for the calculator part. Alright, so let's resume our handout. Alright, so this is the part where we are going to derive a simpler formula for centered moving average so that we doesn't really need to carry out like this two-stage of procedure. Okay, so how can we do that exactly? So let's try to carry out the process as if we doesn't know the shortcut yet. Alright, okay, so you can see that there's data points here, and if we are carrying out a 4-point moving average, then what we'll try to do is we'll try to find out the 4-point moving average first, right? So which means that the middle will be at 2.5 here. So this is where our data will be located. Okay, so what we need to do is actually using A plus B and plus C plus D and then divide by 4. Am I right? So this is the idea of it. So then after that, when we continue to the next 4 value, then we'll be using from the second value until the 5th value here, then the middle will be here. So the same thing here, but we are finding the sum of B plus C plus D plus E and then divide by 4. Okay, so I hope that you still remember how to do this. So after we have find out these two value, then what do we need to do for the sentence so it align to the data number that we have is that we need to carry out another moving average, right? So that's why these two value, then you are going to do another moving average. So what we need to do is we are finding out the sum of these two. I'm going to write a bigger words here. So, we can write in this way. So which means that we are going to add them up together, right? So A plus B plus C plus D and divide by 4. Okay, then after that, we plus this value, which is B plus C plus D plus E, and then divide by 4. So after we plus these two values together, then we divide by 2. Am I right? So which means divide by 2 is basically multiply 1 over 2 lah. So divide by 2 is the same thing when we say multiply 0.5 or multiply 1 over 2. It's basically the same thing. Or if let's say you find this confusing, then what you can do is you do divide 2 lah. So it's basically the same thing. But for an easier way, let's try to do this. So for the easier derivation later. Okay, so we are adding up these two values, then we divide by 2. So multiply 1 over 2. So now what we need to do is we try to simplify this thing and see whether we can get an easier formula from there or not. Okay, so let's try to copy down the formula we have here in the next page. Okay, so we have 1 over 2 and then A plus B plus C plus D divided by 4 and plus B plus C, let me write in better way, B plus C plus D plus E and then divide by 4. Okay, so now let's try to simplify this thing. So we can leave 1 over 2 outside. Then you'll realize that this is over 4, this is also over 4, right? So in terms of fraction, we can actually add them up together in terms of the numerator there. So A only have 1, so that's why you're left with A. Then you can see B plus B is going to give you 2B. C plus C is going to give you 2C. D plus D is going to give you 2D. Then after that, E only have 1, so plus E. And then divide by 4. Okay, so this is the answer that you have after you add them up together. Okay, so now what are we going to do is we try to multiply 1 over 2 through the numerator. So which means that what you are getting is 1 over 2 multiply A, so you get 1 over 2. So 1 over 2 multiply 2B, then you are getting B, because 2 multiply 1 over 2, you get 1. So 1 over 2 multiply 2 again, then you get 1, so that's why you left with 1C. 1 over 2 multiply D, then you are getting 1D. 1 over 2 multiply E, then you get 1 over 2E. Okay, and then divide by 4. So you can see that from this much more complicated approach, which we need to plus 4 number divide by 4, plus 4 number divide by 4, then we plus them together, then we find the average. It can be done in such a way that we halve the first number and we halve the last number and we plus the middle 3 number divide by 4, then we can get the answer. Okay, it seems a little bit complicated here, but no worry. let's try to put them into this situation, then you'll be looking at the idea in a much more clearer way. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do is, you see, as you are doing 4-point average, because you can't find the middle, right? So what do you need to do is you need to take one more extra point. So which means that you can see that the point that involved is not A, B, C, D only, it's A, B, C, D, E. So you are actually using 5 points. So you are doing 4-point moving average, but we are looking at 5 points, then find the middle. Is that okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 points. Okay, but remember that even though you are taking 5 points, but you are actually doing standard 4-point moving average. So it's not that you plus all this number and divide by 5. So what do you need to do is the first number and the last number, you are taking it half. So which means that in this case, either you want to write 1 over 2 also can, or if you find this is easier for you, then you can also do this. So 0.5, because 1 over 2 is basically 0.5, right? I guess this will be easier for you guys. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to halve the first number, which is the A here. So here, the first number is 60. So that's why 0.5 multiply 60. Then for the middle number is going to be exactly the same, B plus C plus D. So that's why plus 67 plus 47 plus 38. And this is your last number, right? Then you are going to halve it as well. So 0.5 multiplied by 52. So you realize that how many numbers do you have here exactly? So it's like half plus half, so it's 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's why at the end you are still dividing by 4. So this is the difference between you are doing standard 4-point moving average or you are doing 5-point average. Then at the end, you will be able to get your answer here will be equal to 52. So when you try to check it with your previous handout, so this is the exactly same question that we are doing for the last question, then you'll be able to see that, you see, 52 over here. So it's kind of like you are skipping this step, then you straight away go from here to here. So this is why we are deriving the formula. Okay, so you see this one is 52. So you straight away get your answer of 52 here. So now let's move on to the second one. So same thing, when you are doing 4-point, then which means you are taking 5 points. So this is same thing, your center, right? So you are taking this 5 point. Okay, so half the first value, half the last value. So 0.5 multiply 67, and then the middle one remain the same, 47, 38, 52. And then the last one, we have 53. Oops. Alright, then same thing, don't forget it's not divide by 5 here, it's divide by 4. Okay, because you are doing standard 4-point moving average. And from here, you are getting 49.25. You can try with your calculator, then you will be able to see 49.25 here. So the next one should be 47. So let's check and see whether the answer is correct or not. Okay, so yeah, same thing. Another 5 points. This is the last time that we are doing this together. Yeah? The next one, I'm going to use our calculator to get all the answer. So 5 points again, taking one extra point, half the first one, half the last one, then plus the remaining one. So half the first one, 47, the remaining one, as usual, 38, 52, 53, half the last one, 0.5 multiply 43. Okay, and divide by 4. So from here, then you are getting 188 divided by 4, which give you 47. Okay, so you can see all the answer here is actually correct. So that's why normally in your exams, you are able to straight away do this rather than carry out the two-stage thing. So this two-stage of idea is for you to understand what is that meant by standard moving average and why do you need to do two and what's the problem and so on. So after you familiarize with this and you know how this formula are coming from, then you should use this one in future. Okay, and for this one, it will be easier for us to implement in our calculator as well. So for the rest of the number, we are trying to use our calculator to help us to do that. But before that, let's try to finish this. Okay, so imagine if let's say this is a formula that you are using for a 4-point moving average, right? How if you are doing a 6-point centered moving average? Okay, so same thing, remember, you need to take in one extra point, and the last point and the first point, you are taking the half of it. So that's why it's the same thing. So 0.5a, okay, and the middle you have the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and after that only the 7 point you are taking the half of it. Okay, so you can see that, sorry, this is supposed to be G. So after you do this, then you can try to calculate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you are using 7 points, so which is correct. So if let's say you have 7 points, then this is the D is the one that you have your first value. You get what I mean, right? So which means that if you are doing 6, then which means that the fourth point should be the one that you are writing your first value lah, because 7 point, then the middle is here. All right, and then the same thing, half half, so that becomes 1, and you have 5 in the middle, so the whole thing here will be divide by 6 because you are doing centered moving average for 6 point. Same thing if you are doing 8 point, which means you need to add another point for the last one, so in total you are using 9 point. So half the first one, okay, and then second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 7, 8, and add in another 9, so you should be halving it as well. Okay, and then divide by 8. Alright, so that's the idea, and your middle will be at A, B, C, D, and then E, F, G, H, I, so the middle is at G. So this is where your first data should be at. Alright, so I hope that you get what I mean now. So now let's try to go to the last part of our lesson here, which we try to look at how do we implement this centered 4-point moving average in our calculator. Alright, so we are still using the same list and spreadsheet, so you doesn't really need to open another document. So if you want, also can. So depends on you lah. It's basically generally okay if let's say you know how to assign everything. Okay, so same thing here, then we can see there's quarter here and there's number of caters. So I'm just going to put in, so that's a period of time and put in quarter. Okay, then cater, then this is my center moving average. Okay, so now I'm going to key in my value here. I will try to fast forward the process. You can use this time to key in your value first. Okay, so remember to spend some time to actually go through everything and make sure that things that you are key in is correct, because if not, that's going to cause you a big trouble if there's any mistake while you are entering the data. So the same things go for, especially you are doing numerical data as well, because if not, for the bivariate data analysis, it's going to be everything wrong if let's say you key in any wrong data. Alright, so that's the data. So now what do we need to do? Same thing, we need to tell the calculator what the calculator need to do. So you see that your first value is actually at the third cell here. So that's why this is where we start. So how do you get the number? It's half the first number, then after that the rest you plus it and you half the last number, right? So that's why in this case I'm using F column and also the first row as 60. So equal to, so the first one will be 0.5, my first value, so which is my F1. Okay, then after that plus my F2 plus F3 plus F4 plus F5. Okay, then after that, yeah, do we forgot anything? Yes, the F5 need to half it as well, so 0.5 and then F5. So after you do this, then close your bracket, then after that divide by, oops, sorry. So no worries if let's say you got anything wrong, then you just come back and change it. Alright, then after that divide by 4. Okay, so after you get the value, then you check again with your previous one. So in your normal exams, I'll actually hope that you can try to find your first answer with your normal scientific calculator first. So that's why after you key in your data with your graphing calculator, then you have something to check. You get what I mean? Because if let's say you are keying any thing wrongly here, and if you only dependent on your graphing calculator to do the calculation, then you have no way to check. So from there, then that might be a little bit risky that, sometimes when we try to put in the value, maybe you have some careless mistake. So make sure that you can try to do one manual calculation with your normal calculator before that. Okay. So after you do this and you get your first value, then we are going to menu data field again. So menu data field. Okay, then make sure that it's going down. Actually, you can use your cursor as well, but I think that's going to be a little bit troublesome. So that's why it's easier that you can straight away use this. Okay, yeah, then after that, go down, go down, go down. All right, until the bottom of your data. Then after that, you press enter. So you'll be able to get all your value here. So from 31, then the rest one. Okay, so 52, 49.25, 47. And if let's say we try to compare to the previous one, then you'll be able to get the same answer as well. So let's try to have a check. Okay, so you can see 47, then the next one 45.25, 42.75, 40.625, and so on. So basically you got everything here. Then you also know that the last two row will be the empty one, and the calculator will show you that also. Okay, so same thing, if you need to compare anything with your graph, then you just control, then go to your left hand side, go back to this, then you just change over here quarter, and after that we change it to cattle. Then after that you want to add in anything, then you just add in your center moving average. So make sure everything is correct. Okay, so the only thing the only thing that I want to emphasize here is that to make sure that everything that I try to do here, right, make sure that you are not putting any same variable. So for example, if let's say just now I already used the variable of time, then make sure that while in the other case, then make sure that I must change another variable. So same thing just now, if I use moving average, I use MA, then here I cannot use MA anymore, then I need to change to another one. So in case if let's say you are doing any further analysis, right, then you will have overlapping of your variable. So make sure that if you doesn't want to open another document, then make sure that you are using different variable to assign different thing. Okay, so that's pretty much of it. Same thing, you can see this is the data that you have after you remove the seasonal effect. Alright, so that's basically for this part. So I hope that you have understand the idea for moving average, how to do it manually, and how to use your calculator to do that. Then after that, also how to use the shortcut. So if let's say you want to practice more, then you can try to use your previous exercise. Then you try to go through everything again by using your calculator and see whether you get the same answer or not. Okay, then remember to watch the briefing video for your exams, then also finish your exercise, and we are going to discuss it together next week. Alright, so that's the part for today's lesson. Thanks for watching. Thank you.